Welcome to my four-part series in digital pattern drafting. My name is Alyssa Ritter, and I am a professional costume designer for theater and digital media. In each episode, I will demonstrate a different approach to drafting patterns in Clo 3D. In this video, I will show you how to drape a period bodice using the 3D pen tool. Let's get started. Let's start by setting up our workspace. I'm going to go to the File menu, click File, go down to Import, and then choose the FBX option. Here in my file folder, for this project, I have the avatar file, and that should be the only option because it's the only FBX in the folder. Go ahead and click Open. And then for settings, we want load type to be open, object type to be avatar, scale to be centimeter for DAZ Studio, 100% scale, and then the only box that we want checked here in both object and option is auto add arrangement points. If your settings look like this, go ahead and click OK, and it'll import the custom avatar that I made for this project. You'll notice that she is a different shape than the typical Clo 3D avatars. That's because I've given her the period undergarments that are necessary to create this silhouette. In our 2D window, we're going to go ahead and right-click, Format 2D Background, go to Image File and click on the tiny little folder icon and choose El Salon de la Moda. And that will pop it right back in there. We're not going to trace this pattern, we're going to use it as a reference, so it doesn't matter what scale it is, but I will make it 100% opacity so that it is easier to see. And then click OK. Now I'm going to introduce you to the 3D avatar pen. In the 3D window, there's two sets of little pen icons. This first set is for 3D pen on the garment, so we're not going to be using that one. We'll be using this one down here, which if you hover over it, it will say 3D pen and then in parentheses avatar. So go ahead and click on that button. And it's also, let me just point out, not the edit 3D pen. We want to get to the 3D pen first. All right, click on the 3D pen, and then you'll see that there's, when I move my cursor over the avatar, there's a little dot, and what we want to do first is create a center front line. So I'm going to go ahead and hold shift to give myself a guideline, and starting at the base of the neck, I'm going to left click and then come down to around this area of the corset and double click. I just created the first center front line that's going to be for my garment, and I used, that is going to be this line right here. Let me go ahead and zoom in so you could see it better. This line right here. Now I'm going to go to the back and do the same thing. I'm looking at the back of the garment. Of course, I can't see the back of this reference image, but I can see on this pattern piece that it goes up all the way up to the neck. So I'm going to go ahead and click there. And then I think it'll probably end maybe down here, but because of this avatar, it won't let me drag my line below the corset. So I'm just going to take it to the end of the corset and double click. And now I have my center front and my center back lines. The next thing I want to add in is my neckline, and so I'm going to click at the center front, and then I would like to just be able to click at the center back and then have that be my neckline, but you can see that it doesn't want to go all the way out. I need to give it some more reference points. It just wants to go through the neck and it's not very happy. So when I give myself more points, I want them to actually curve with my line. So I'm going to hold down Control and then click, and it creates these little red dots that it keeps this nice curve in my line, and but also guides it to where I actually want it to go. To finish the neckline, I'm going to just click once on the center back and it'll create that line. All right, and then I want to also create a waistline as a reference point because I find it's easier to edit patterns when I have that available. And so I put my first point down. I can hold shift and my line will walk around the pattern, and then I of course hold control to give myself some more of these curve points, and then I can just finish right by clicking that back line. All right, I think it's very helpful to work by giving yourself the center front and the center back first, and then start working on the holes of the garment, like the neckline, the arm's eye, and the hips, before doing any more internal lines, because it just makes a much cleaner workflow. All right, I'm going to give myself the hip line, and let's see, I can hold that shift button and it'll help guide, hold control, and I could put that curve point in and then bring that all the way around to this center back here and then click. All right, the last one I'm going to do in this set is the arm's eye. And so I'm going to actually start at the shoulder and start working my way around. You can do the same thing where you're holding shift and control to get those points in. Oh, that's not going to put one down here. Great. And then keep working our way around until I can put one at the very top. There we go. All right, now that I have the holes of my garment and a waist seam, I'm going to go ahead and start working on dividing this up into all of these pieces here. So I'm looking at this. We've got the center front piece. We've got a side piece, which actually starts it looks like just inside of the side seam here, and then a side back piece, and then a center back piece. Those are the pieces that I'm working with. For the front piece, like I said, I think it looks like it starts kind of, I'm seeing a lot of this arm's eye curve. So I'm going to go ahead and click here and the waist. And then that'll create one piece. I will merge these pieces together again. I'm going to continue it down and get the bottom. Then for my side back seam, I think it's probably about here. Here, that's one piece, and then there. And then this center back seam, I'm looking at this curve, where that starts. I kind of want to put the shoulder seam in first to give myself reference, because this is a really short line right there. And I happen to know from my research that the shoulder seam on a period garment doesn't really sit where it does on a contemporary garment. It sits actually a little bit further back. And so I'm going to maybe start it here and then go to there. That looks about right. So then now I'm getting that shape there. And then I'll put in now this this center back seam. And this one you can see curves. So I'm going to put a curve point here by holding control. And then end at the waist, and then go from the waist all the way down. All right, the last thing that I see that is represented here that isn't in my draping yet is this center, or I guess it's like like a front dart right here under the bust. So to do that, it's actually very easy. I'm just going to kind of look at where the fullness of this dart needs to exist, and then I'm going to go straight down, and then I want to make sure I carry that down through the bottom pattern as well. All right, so that looks pretty good. But that's because I've done this pattern a couple times. If you want to move any of these points or delete extra points or adjust your curves, all you have to do is go to the Edit 3D Pen tool, which is right above the 3D Pen tool. So go ahead and click that. And then you can click any one of these points and drag it around to move it. You can also click curve points to move it. If you want to delete a curve point, like I don't think I need this one right here, I just click on it and go delete with your delete button. You can also click it, right click, and delete. If you want to add a curve point then you can right click the line, add curve point, and then you have another place that you can use to establish curves in your garment. If you want, you can also do the same by adding a point by right click, add point. And with that, you should be able to manipulate your draping to look similar to this, using, again, your reference, just kind of checking back and forth to see where all of those lines appear. The last thing that I want to show you on draping is how to flatten out your lines. So again, we're in the Edit 3D Pen tool, and then go to like the center front line, which It does have a little bit of a curve in it, but it'll make it easier later on if I ask it to flatten out, to straighten the line before it flattens out. So I'm just going to go ahead and click the lines that I want to be straightened, flattening, and then right click, flattening as straight line. I'll do that to the back pieces as well, flattening a straight line. And I'm going to do it to the shoulder seam. And, I actually want all of these seams to be straight too. It might seem counterintuitive because they're curving around the body, but I find that when I flatten the pattern, I'm deleting all of these curves anyway. So it's just easier to do it now. Flatten a straight line. All right. Now we're ready to unwrap this pattern from the 3D avatar and create it over here in the 2D space. Before we flatten this pattern, I want to show you a trick if you're struggling to get these shapes to work. For example, if you've clicked maybe on the line here somewhere, but you've tried to click over here, it's going to give you an error message that says, lines created with the line avatar tool cannot cross. Please try again. You might be frustrated, but all it's saying is that you need to make complete shapes. So if you click on this line, you're going to need to end at the arm's eye and then click the arm's eye and move on to create that extended line. Similarly, if you have started a line here but ended it here, you're going to need to complete this somehow by attaching it back to another line, again, so that you create complete shapes. If you don't do this, then the next step isn't going to work. So just check that. All right, to flatten the pattern, you're going to go to 3D pen, but rather than clicking on it, you're going to click and hold, and you'll get the flatten option. With the flatten option selected, you'll see when I hover over complete patterns, they turn blue, and you just click them, and then they turn yellow. We've asked this to create individual patterns for the top of the bodice and then below the waist. And I did that again so that I could have a waist reference. I find it's easier to make patterns that way. You don't necessarily have to do it, but it does make it a lot easier. Once you have all of your patterns selected, it says that you just press enter. So I'll just press enter, and then they appear over here in the 2D window in whatever which way. This is the time I want to use to merge the tops with the bottoms of the patterns. It's still going to keep that merged line as a reference. To do that, I'm going to use this tool up here, which is Edit Sewing, key command B. And on the top of the bodice, I'm just going to right click the sewing and then click merge, and it'll bring the bottom to the top. And I'm going to do that for all of these pieces. If I right clicked the bottom of the pattern and clicked merge, it would make the top merge with the bottom, and I think the grain lines look better on the top, so which is why I'm using the top first. All right, and then merge. All right, now I have these patterns. They look pretty close to my reference, which is really cool. I want to go ahead and rotate them though so that they are oriented in a way that makes sense. All right, so similarly to how they're laid out here, I'm going to move around, rotate this one, put that one, that's my side back piece, rotate this one, my side front piece, and that looks really good with those rotated. Now I'm going to Command or Control Shift or Control All, and then go Shift D or Control D or Control or Command D to duplicate. I'm just going to put those over here, and now I have two halves of my pattern. When I flattened them, Clo3D generously already sewed them all together, but since I just made these two different pieces, I need to sew my center fronts and my center backs. So let's go to our segment sewing tool and click the center front, sew those together, and click my center backs and sew those together. And with those sewn, I can go ahead and simulate and check out the bodice that I've draped and drafted. All right, so this looks pretty good. We want to check the fit, and to do that, we're going to go to our fit map, which is along the sidebar here. Just hover over the second little rolly fabric icon, and then it's this one, Fit Map. You can also get to it by the key command Alt 8. All right, what that does is it actually it, it, it will turn red where the garment is too tight, and you can't actually wear it. It'll turn yellow if it's just tight. And the cool thing about the fit map is that it will take in the fabric type in consideration. So with this on, it looks like we have no major issues, and what we need to do next is adjust our grain lines and just finesse this pattern to make it look like our reference image. Alright, so for grain lines, when I rotated these patterns, it did not rotate their grain lines with them. And I can tell by going to the 2D information display and clicking Show Grain Line. So the front and the back actually look fine. It's this line right here. But the grain lines on the side backs look really quite terrible. And it's just because Clo3D can't read our minds, and that's fine. So to give myself some reference grain lines on that will show up in the 3D space, I'm going to use the internal polygon or line tool, also key command G, and I'm going to click anywhere on the pattern, and I'm going to hold shift to lock my line to I guess a 90-degree angle. And I'm going to double click to end that line. And I'm going to do that on each of my patterns. And as I do, you'll see soon that it shows up in the 3D window as just a vertical line. And I just want to check these lines to see if I like how they look and if they look like a good grain line to me. The general rule for grain lines, not in all periods, but in most periods, is that they are perpendicular to the floor. Actually, this looks pretty good. If I wanted to rotate any of them, what I would do is I would go to the A tool or transform pattern tool, and I'd click on one of these lines, and in this little box up here I would just rotate it like that. But I don't think I need to. This looks pretty good. So what I want to do now is ask these grain lines to line up with my reference grain lines. To do that, I'm going to go to this icon in the 2D window called Edit Texture 2D. The key command for that is T. And on each of my grain lines, I'm just going to right click, and then I'm going to say Align Grain Line Grain Parallel to Selected. I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to click that reference grain line, and that just lined it up right there. I'm going to go ahead and do that again. Align grain parallel to selected, and go grab that reference line. These honestly look great, no problems. The nice thing is when I asked it to straighten out this center front line is that it interpreted that I probably wanted that on the straight of grain, and it was right. I did want that. It doesn't work symmetrically, so I do have to do it on all of the patterns. Align grain parallel to selected and select, and then align grain parallel to selected and select. And that will change all of my grain lines. I'm going to go ahead and simulate to see what that does. And yeah, that was actually nice. You saw that the grain really affects the way that the fabric will distort, and it really kind of fixed some of that. That's looking really, really good. I'm really liking the fit and the top here, and I think that I just need to work now on adjusting the shape in the bottom to look like my reference. Alright, to adjust my patterns to look like the reference, there's no secret to it. It's just using your pattern drafting knowledge and checking your work as it updates in the 3D window. So I'm going to go to the Edit Pattern tool or the Z tool, and I'm just gonna look and see what I got here. Let's move everyone over here, so right next to my reference, and then check out these shapes. So we've got some ugly curves here. That's fine. How to get rid of those is I'm just going to right click the curve with the Z tool and then delete all curve points. And that will just make it a straight line, and then I can go to this tool right here, the Edit Curvature tool, or the C hotkey, and then I could put my own prettier curve in there. Following that curve, it looks like this one. Oh, see, when I moved it, it made such an ugly curve. So what I want to do is go right click, delete all curve points, go back to my C tool, and I can put a much prettier curve in there. Um, I think that to make this smooth, what I can do is go to Z and then hold down um, um, Alt, or on the Mac, I believe it's Command. And then I can adjust both of these Bezier handles at the same time, which will help create a nice smooth curve there. I kind of want to make this handle out. It looks like I have kind of a more of a convex curve there, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get since my pattern shape is not quite right. I think I didn't put that arm's eye in the same exact space as they did. Yeah, I could come over in there a little bit. And if I want to fix that on the 3D pattern, there's this really cool, cool way I can do that called Edit Style Line. It's right over here in the 3D window. Just click Edit Style Line, and then I can actually grab that while on the 3D window, and it's going to edit it here and here. So it's making this pattern bigger, this one smaller, but it's still maintaining this silhouette that I've created. So super duper cool. And fun fact, a little bit of an extra detail for this. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. No, actually my Bezier handles are still here, so that's probably good. I want to delete this point. Your patterns will be cleaner the less points they have in them. If you can make a nice curve just with the Bezier handles, it's going to be a prettier pattern than if you've added in all these extra points. Here as well, let's delete all curve points there and give it just a nice gentle curve here. This actually looks really good. I'm going to leave those. And I'm noticing, my side pattern looks like this could get shifted over a little bit. You could see when it doesn't want me to do that because it's got all these curve points in here, which are annoying. So let's just get rid of those. And now we can shift this pattern over, and it looks a little bit more like the period pattern reference down here. And same here. I probably have to delete all these curve points, and then I can shift this one over like that. How does that look? All right, that looks really nice. This shape looks pretty good, and I'm just going to give a nice gentle curve in the back here. Use that trick where I hold Alt or Command with the Z tool selected and adjust this curve. Alt. Oops. I think I need to think that there might be some curve points that I need to delete to make that work. Oh, you know what it is? This isn't curved, so that's why I need to add a little curve there. Then I can click Alt and with the Z tool, click Alt and adjust this curve at the same time. There we go. That's nice and pretty. Okay. This looks pretty good. My dart is a lot wider than their darts. My little avatar must be more busty than theirs. But I think what I can do is if I bring this point in a little bit here and this point out, I can give it more of this shape, which is going to give some nice shaping in the front here. I think for all of these I should add a little bit of length. Just hold shift and drag down with the Z tool. Yeah, that looks nice. And she's probably got some padding in her bum here, which my avatar doesn't have, but I'm still going to create a little bit of room for that. Yeah, and it's just a matter of continuing to go around and refining these curves, and making everything look nice and pretty. If you're liking how it's looking, then what you can do is you want to make sure that all of these lines are true to each other. And one way you can do that is by walking the patterns together, with the walk pattern tool, which is in the 2D window right here. Just click that right there. And for example, if I want to make sure this line matches up to this line, I just click this waist dot, and as I drag it down alongside, you can see it's walking it together. And if I want, I'm like, that's a little bit off. What I can do is right click, move walked pattern to intersection, and then I can use the Z tool to grab and then line it up right there. And now I know that they are trued together. I can do the same thing going back to my walk pattern tool and going down like this, and that is quite a bit of difference. So I'm going to go ahead and actually bring this whole line down because I think I want it to come down in the back too. Just like that. And now those two patterns are trued from the waist down. And then I'm going to go to my walk pattern tool, click on this waist seam, and walk down here, and then move walk pattern to intersection. And I'm going to grab the whole back pattern, the whole line here, and to bring that down as well. I can see that there's going to be a little bit of a point here in the back, which I don't necessarily want. So I'm going to give this a nice curve and grab go to the Z tool, grab my Bezier handle, and try to make a little squared angle here that'll make that a much smoother transition in the back. All right, that looks pretty good. How are we feeling? I think that I could bring my neckline. Oh, I kind of want to delete this curve here and put a new one in. It's a little bit smoother. And the same thing, using the Z tool, grab that Bezier handle and moving it so that I have a nice right angle there so there's no peak. Let's check out the front. You know, it's not my favorite curve, but it'll work. All right, now all my patterns are kind of all over the place, but the good thing is that since I marked their grain lines before I rotated them, I can go ahead and go to the pattern select tool, select my patterns, rotate, and then reset along grain direction, just like that. So now they are all rotated on their grain, which makes things just a little bit easier to work with. And another cool thing that I can do is, now I've trued them from the waist down, I have to true them from the waist up. So let's grab my walk pattern tool, and we're going to do the same exact thing, except we're going to go up this time. All right, and I think I want to bring, I think I want to bring this one up to you so that you guys are trued there. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to try to walk them so I can get them all together. Walk pattern intersection so I can see what the overall curve of this armscye looks like. So let's walk you to here and then walk you all the way up and then move past. All right. So that gives me a good idea of this curve. Actually, it doesn't look bad, which is really great. Just going to move this point, this point here, and let's move this point here. And if I wanted to, I could adjust this curve just to make it a little bit smoother, but you know, I'm not too mad about it. Let's go ahead and walk my back to my front, and it's slightly bigger, but you know, I think that can be eased in, and that's fine. If I want to do it from the other side. So just press enter. So I walk it from here out so I can check out that neckline curve, and you know, that actually looks pretty good too. Yeah, this looks really nice. Let's see, let's check the darts. I can just do that by going to the sewing tool and seeing the difference, 0 and 0.1. Not bad. One thing I can do is go back to the edit pattern tool and then click these dart legs. Let's see if it'll work for me because it's in 2 segments. Oh, I don't know that it's going to. It should give me an option for working with darts. I might have to delete these points, and I have this guideline here, so no worries. I can get that curve back and delete this point. And I have that guideline right here, so I can give that curve back. All right, now let's use the Z tool to grab both of those and right click. All right, now it gives me the option to shape the dart cap. So go ahead and click that. And at the bottom here, it's giving me a preview of what this is going to look like when it's sewn together. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter. If I wanted to change it, I could just move this. And then this is what the bottom of the pattern would look like. And that's not right. Let's go back. So that's holding shift to click both legs, shape dart cap, and then press enter to complete. And then it gave me a nice curve down here. It did get rid of my pretty curve, so I'm just going to bring it back because I want that curve. It's very important to the shape of my garment. So 12.5, I'm going to manually true this now. 12.7, I think that I can achieve this by just adjusting this curve here. 12.6, 12 point, let me get a little smaller. Let's see. Okay, let's just grab this one until it's 12.5. 12 point, let's pop that. All right, see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks fine. And then it's showing me some fitting issues here. I'm wondering if my dart actually goes up a little bit too high. It should end about an inch from the widest bust point. So why don't I just bring that down a little bit? And again, keeping track of my truing to make sure that those legs are the same length. And yeah, that looks good. And it looks also more like my reference too. You know, it kind of looks like my dart overall is a little bit too high. Let's bring it down even more. Okay, it's kind of trying to lock to different settings. Yeah, I liked it better before. All right, I'm just Control Z. All right, there we go. All right, now we've got a bodice. You can keep working and playing with it, but I feel pretty good about where this is at right now. One thing we do want to do is check this in the fabric that it will actually be made out of. I want to go ahead and reset these rotations, or reset along grain line, spread them out again. And I'm going to go to fabric and scroll down. Don't be fooled by fabric type, which just tells you what the fabric looks like. Scroll all the way down to fabric's physical property. And right now it's on the custom fabric, which is useful for drafting, but not necessarily for checking fit. All right, and then I think that for this garment, something that it would be made out of, it is, how about a silk taffeta. You know, I do think it would have a strong lining in it as well that's holding its shape. So how about cotton canvas? That sounds good. Oh my goodness, that created all of these fit issues. It's just way too tight. We need way more wearing ease here. So let's go ahead and add that in. I think the obvious place we can put it is along this side here. Let's go ahead and bring this out. We really should have checked this before we trued everything, huh? But c'est la vie. I'm actually thinking that if I just grab this and then bring it out, oops, I'm going to grab both these lines, bring them out about half an inch. It's going to give some more space in there. I'm seeing maybe that didn't need to come out so much in the waist. Bring that back. Okay, that's looking good. And then maybe just back on this side, just bringing that out there. Let's delete the curve points there. All right, it looks pretty good. And then I'm wondering, is this just caught in there? Okay. And yeah, and then one thing is it's hard to check the fit in the neckline because it does want to stretch. Something that you can do is on any garment you would be stay stitching or seam taping these lines anyway. With the Z tool, go ahead and select the arm size and the necklines, and then go to the property editor and turn on seam taping. And that's going to reinforce those seams to keep them from stretching just like they would on the real garment. And that gives you a better sense of how that fit looks. All right. Um, Yeah, this is giving us a lot of good information. Of course, if you really want to check the fit and your computer can handle it, go to Fitting Accurate Fabric and it'll simulate a lot more accurately and you can really check the fit there. It's just still a little tight here. So how about I go back to the normal settings and it's this side back seam looks like. So let's just take a little bit of that out there. All right. There's some more smoothing and finessing I could do to make this really shine, but I'm going to keep moving forward for the sake of the tutorial. All right, let's go ahead and add a collar onto this garment. And to do that, I'm just going to go to the C tool and I'm going to click the neckline. And as I click, if I'm holding shift, it'll give me the total of what that neckline looks like, so or how long it is. So it says 4.4 here, 2.5 there, but along my cursor it says 7.029. So let's make a 7-inch long collar. All right, so going to the rectangular draft tool, or S, I'm going to click anywhere in the 3D window. For width, I'm going to do 7. And for height, that's a pretty tall collar. Let's go ahead and start with 2 inches and then we'll move from there. And then I can use the Z tool, click on any one of either line, and then unfold symmetric editing with sewing. We'll make this center front opening and line it up like this. So this will be their center back, this will be our center front. And then I'm going to use M and free sewing, which is over here. There's no hotkey for it, unfortunately, because I use it all the time because it's really convenient for sewing 2 different pattern pieces to a single other pattern piece and distribute the fullness evenly. But all right, it's over here in the 2D window. Click on, here's the first one, which is segment sewing. It's actually free sewing, MN free sewing. And to use this tool, you're going to go to your collar pattern, and then you're going to click starting the center back, and then you're going to drag all the way to the center front, and then click again. And now you need to tell it that you're done clicking for that side of the seam, so press enter. And then you go to the corresponding pattern, click the center back to the shoulder, click the shoulder, don't click enter, instead go to the front, click the shoulder on the front, and then drag all the way down to the center front. Now that you have that complete side of the seam selected, press enter, and those seam lines will automatically generate. I could just press simulate and this would fly into place, but I'm going to go ahead and do a more eloquent method, which is right click the pattern in the 3D window and go superimpose side. All right, and go ahead and simulate, and there's the collar. So cute. There might be little hooks that are holding this closed. It looks like we could do some finessing on shaping it to go around the neck, but I'll leave that up to you and your patterning expertise to navigate. The last thing that I want to show you in this tutorial is how to right-click the pattern and choose Strengthen. That will give it the kind of interfacing that the collar would have in real life. And there we have it. There is our period bodice, draped with the 3D pen using a period reference. Check out the next tutorial for how to draft the sleeve pattern.